The goal of this podcast is to help you break in and thrive in advertising. We do that every single Tuesday by sharing the stories, both horror and success, of those who made it on the other side. This week, we learned from the always cool Kapono Chung. Kapono is the founder and head of design at Combo Agency. Combo is a leading strategy and design agency offering branding and design services. Note, this is different from traditional advertising shop, and Kapono breaks it down simply in this episode. They offer research, strategy, innovation, and branding practices. They are based in New York City with a significant ensemble of clients, including Instagram, Gap, Bed Bath & Beyond, Sports Illustrated Tickets, Nike Golf, and plenty more. Kapono grew up in a household in South Korea, where his father was also a designer. Kapono's story and career trajectory are inspiring and educational for those who especially want to pursue design or art direction as a career. But all around, he's got fantastic advice for how you can break in and thrive in advertising, including he highlights Scope of Work Agency. Scope of Work is a talent development agency for young BIPOC creatives that establishes equity in the creative industry. So it's a 2-for-1 episode. You're going to love it. You can find Kapono's resources, which he recommends just for you, by visiting our Instagram at Breaking and Entering Pod. All one word, at Breaking and Entering Pod. Now on with the show. This is the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast, and as usual, I'm your accomplice, Gino Schellenberg. Kick it, Mikey. All right, Kapono Chung, welcome to the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast. How you doing today?
Doing well. Doing very good. Excited to be here.
Heck yeah. Where are you at right now?
I'm in Brooklyn in my apartment in Crown Heights. In New York.
Heck yeah. So what are we going to do today? We're going to talk about you, Combo, which is your partner at. We'll get to that. We're going to talk a little bit about where you're from, where you were born, how you're raised, how you broke into advertising, design, innovation, all of this world that you're kind of doing super well in, and maybe even some distinctions between advertising, branding, innovation, design. I might need a refresh. I might have forgotten what the difference might be. Not going to lie. So does that all that kind of sound good for subject matter of this episode?
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah.
All right, cool. There's a lot to talk about. So where do you want to dive in? You want to first tell us about who you are, what you do?
Sure. Yeah, we'll start. Yeah, we can start there. My name's Kapono. I'm creative director, partner, founder, and head of design at Combo. Started the company in 2016, around then, and it's grown from, me to, I guess, 25 to 30 people. We flex based on the amount of on the different projects that we have, whether we bring in freelancers or not. But we have about 25 full-time employees now. So quite a bit of growth happened. A lot of it happened during the pandemic. Actually, we were a 6-person company, and then we came together with this strategy and innovation company during the pandemic. And so from there, they had 10 people, we became 16 people, and since then we've grown to about 25 people.
Yeah, so I guess tell us like what you're all about then. What are you guys really good at? Who are your clients? What have you done in the past? What's the situation? Like why are we coming to Combo?
I guess one of the big a founding client of ours was essentially Away Travel, the suitcase company. I was employee number 1 there. And this is right before I started Combo. And I helped create the brand. I helped design the product, the exterior of the product. Design an industrial design agency out of California did the interior of the whole thing.
Okay.
But I helped create the full product line, launched 2 websites, and then right after that, I left and I started my own agency.
Got it. Why'd you leave?
I left because I I guess I'm a constant, like a serial entrepreneur, and I always like to start things. I get a little bit bored of things sometimes.
Yeah.
Kind of. So I've started like 6 or 7 different businesses. I mean, Combo is by far the most successful one, but I've had a hair iron business. I've had a bag business. I guess I consider Away one of the businesses that I helped start and help
Sure.
grow. Um, and uh, and I've also had other design businesses too. But this is the one that's really, really caught on. And so after Away, a number of other founders started to come to me. Chill House, Cindy Ramirez at Chill House, which is it's kind of a spa, coffee shop, nail salon in New York. They just opened a Paris location, which is amazing. The success of them has been unbelievable throughout, from the moment they started back in 2017 till now. They just continued to grow even through the pandemic.
Nice.
Another brand was Say Beauty, which is a clean makeup company done by Lainey, and so that is a huge brand now. It's like sold in Sephora.
Nice.
It's all over the place, and we had the opportunity to work with her on that. And
so what are you doing for the designing? What does that mean, like, for all these your different projects, the businesses that you helped start or started? What is your role specifically? What are you offering to the table?
So my role is really, for all of those companies that I just mentioned, I've worked on everything from the strategy, from how they kind of act as a business and act as, oftentimes companies are now trying to take on human attributes, and so it's to be able to relate to other folks and to be able to relate to their audience base. And so a lot of the times we assign a lot of those human attributes to these different companies through strategy, through understanding their audience. And then after that, we start to create, kind of the look and feel of the whole company. So we worked on the logo, the color palette, the typography. Sometimes we even create a full asset library that they kind of push out into the world as they launch. And so sometimes that lasts for 6 months, sometimes it lasts for a year, but it's, now you have to have a lot of content to be able to push out as a brand.
Interesting. I could use some help with that with my podcast.
Yeah,
you had me thinking. Okay, so back to Combo. We got sidetracked there. So we talked about some of your main clients. I guess, like, what's the future looking like? Keep talking about Combo, because I've talked with a lot of people from larger agencies, mid-sized agencies that are kind of full service creative shops that just make ads. So where do you fit in that spectrum?
So I guess the place that we fit in is we come a little bit before the ads, a little bit before the advertising. And sometimes we're back in the day, advertising was king, and brand didn't mean that much. Brand was kind of expressed through advertising, and it was expressed through these kind of large campaigns that went out into the world to touch audiences in different ways. Now we consume media completely differently. It's at our fingertips. It's whenever we want to see it, and it's super easy to touch base with a brand. So that means that branding became far more important because of the way that we consume media. Branding became something that we have to put in front of people in a very consistent way with a very concise message in order for that to be the through line to allow someone to hit the purchase button, essentially. So I think that's kind of where brand sits. Advertising is a short-term game. So brand, if you think of brand as the long-term game, advertising is a short-term game. It's what is relevant in the world at that moment. If you can create something that is, humorous, if you can create something that is timely, that has like cultural relevance in that moment, then your brand will pop off and it'll be great. But it needs to be on.
But every ad should be on brand.
Yes,
on strategy, on brand.
Exactly. Has to hit the audience. Has to know what the audience is. Has to essentially, and so we set the tone a lot of the times for what the sort of advertising partners come in with and use. Sometimes it's like they use all of the things that we've set the tone with: typography, color palette, photographic style. Sometimes they go way off key, which is totally fine, but it's like what hits.
For me, but doesn't it take so long to establish brand trust and identity into the world that if one marketing manager messes it up and they say the wrong thing or they use the wrong colors, they really mess up? Like, can't that identity and trust be ruined?
It can, but because advertising is such a short period of time, it's
People
not
forget.
like, people forget,
Yeah, but if
like,
but you can't be consistently messing up.
yeah,
You want to be on brand. Yeah.
I mean, if it were up to me, everything would be on brand. Everything would. But sometimes you don't want to step on, the advertising creative agency's toes at all. You want them to be able to explore things the way that they want to explore it too.
Okay.
But also, we're not keepers of the brand anymore. At that point, it's on the brand.
So you help set up the brand systems guidelines, the persona. You help very early on. And then once they get larger, or I guess they understand the brand, then they'll go and create some larger ads, perhaps campaigns. And do you say goodbye, or do you try to stick along? Have you tried to venture into the advertising promotional, like creating those campaigns later on for them?
No, not yet. I'm not going to say that we'll never do that, but
sure.
Not.
That's more fun. The brand work is where it's all at. That's what we learn in school.
For me, it is. Yeah, definitely.
That's way cooler.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty sick.
Yeah. I mean, advertising work is really fun too. It's like, also if they have big budgets and stuff, that's really fun.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. A Super Bowl is fantastic. But you're right though. I guess a good contrast would be like you're working on long-term brand work for a company that's going to last for decades potentially, as long as the brand will live. You're setting the foundation. And then you got the contrast where you have a Super Bowl commercial that only airs for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And it can be whatever they want as long as people laugh, and the cultural audience, the relevance that it's a Super Bowl. It doesn't have to be on brand at all for the most part. It should be.
Yeah.
But they can get away with, pulling off something stunty.
Yeah. I mean, it's successful if it leads back to the brand. Of course. So that I think that's the biggest thing, is that you do those things for brand awareness. And
but there are some Super Bowl commercials. There are some commercials where you watch it like that was hilarious. Can you name the brand that
totally
like that QR code that was on the Super Bowl commercial? Everybody still remembers it. Do you remember who it was for? You and I do. Of course, we're experts here. We're professionals. It was Coinbase. What if it was funny? What if I just messed that up?
Yeah, FTX or something.
Yeah, it was FTX, of course. But yeah, I think that's, and I can tell, like, if you're an entrepreneur and you like to start up different projects a lot, it's all branding in the beginning. So no wonder why that makes sense for you. I loved building Breaking Entering early on and branding it and thinking about the future and the guidelines and how we talk and the accomplice and that whole motif that keeps going and that theme that keeps reoccurring. I might have lost it down the line. I should be better, but
it's hard. I mean, it's so hard. It's like in the beginning, it's all opportunity. It's
so
all like open space. It's so fun. It's like,
pick a path, you run with it. Yeah, I could see how doing that in the beginning is so. But like, maybe have you guys thought about like doing like a check-in like a year later? You guys do that?
Yeah.
You have. I think that'd be really beneficial. I don't know how your business works, so I apologize. I'm like, you're like, yeah, of course. Like, no shit. Like, of course we do that.
No. I mean, it's not normal. We just have such, the people that I work with and the clients that I work with, we have we try to keep close relationships with, because it's fun working with them, And so sometimes though, like we did we recently did a rebrand for Jen, which is this it's a multivitamin, woman's vitamin for that comes in the form of a cube. It's not actually a pill, which is like it's amazing.
You chew it?
You chew it, yeah.
Okay.
You chew it, yeah. But they've branched out into a ton of different vitamins. It's all like this cube. It's got ashwagandha and like a ton of shit in it. But
all the good stuff.
Yeah. But Sarah, who's the founder, once in a while she still talks to us. Once in a while she'll ask us like, we're coming out with a new product. What is this package like? How does this packaging look? And we're always game to try to help her steer the brand in the right place and make sure it's all good, you know. But we've created a full guidelines for her and website and everything, so she has all the tools. But once in a while, she'll hit us up for that kind of stuff.
I like it. All right, I'm curious now. Like, I want to know, like, what are the different roles within your shop then? What are the pieces that make this thing function? You have designers, I know you got somebody in marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Who can get a job here, and what are you looking for?
So the structure of our company is probably three main parts, which is there's project management,
Fair.
there's strategy, there's design, and there's also, or I guess, creative. And in creative there's writing too.
Okay.
And essentially our outputs are innovation and branding.
Yep.
So any innovation project goes through project manager, do a little strategy first, do a little design, and then it's out the door. And then design, branding is the same thing. Project manager, strategy, design, out the door.
Got it. Did we talk about the difference between the two outputs?
Innovation and branding?
Yeah.
No, we haven't. Branding is innovation is more upstream, even more upstream than branding. So it's a lot of the innovation work we do is about, I mean, it's working with clients to try to help them, one, be greener to a certain extent. For example, like to have less waste in the world. Like we have a lot of CPG companies that are like, how do we figure out the plastic scenario? And so we've come up with a ton of different documents that kind of explore just that one piece. Or we have some clients that are like, what's the future of this type of beverage? And for confidentiality purposes, we're not going to talk about the client, but so we help them come up with what a new beverage could potentially be, what new packaging could potentially be, what it can. And so it starts off in this like kind of blue sky thinking world where we think of like what's culturally relevant, what are people thinking about, like what is it, health, is it wellness, is it all these things, and then how do we combine that with what you guys produce and what your factories can make in a quick pace? So then how do we put it on the shelf? And so we come up with hundreds of different ideas based on that, on a brief like that. Branding is very much is super tactile. It's like we need a logo, we need a strategy of what we are, and like why we exist and all the pieces and why they come together. And then it's like logo, color palette, typography, website, packaging,
perfect
kind of stuff.
All right, very interesting. So I want to kick it back to how you broke in to advertising and design. So what was that moment when you realized that you wanted to do this for a career?
I mean, for me, it's a little unusual. My father, I grew up in Korea, in Seoul, and my father had a design agency in Seoul.
Okay.
And so he it existed from the late 80s to the late 90s. He passed away in early 2000. And I think for me, he always wanted me to follow in his footsteps. I really wanted to be a dancer, so I dropped all my art classes and then went into dance, and he was like, absolutely not. And so he pushed me further into art and design. And so I've always been creative. I have two brothers. They're both creative. They're my older brother is a creative strategist, studied film. My younger brother studied architecture and went to ITP in NYU here.
It's genetics.
It's genetics. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, my dad would do like weird stuff. Like, he would color, like he would get a t-shirt and then you'd have like the Polo logo and he'd color it black because he didn't actually like branding that much. He didn't like logos, but he was very particular about all the things that he did. So he'd have a certain type of salt shaker, a certain type of, oil, kind of dispenser, like, and it would kind of design permeated our lifestyle in our household, in a way that I don't know if other people have experienced. And so my breakthrough was actually at was in Pratt. I went to Pratt in
Mm-hmm.
New York here in Brooklyn, and I think that is actually the time where you are able to break through, which means that access to the creative industry is extremely like it's really gated. It
What
means
is
that
Pratt? I mean, I've heard this before. I've been afraid to ask. Like, tell me about Pratt. Like, is it art school?
it's an art
What's
school. Yeah, yeah. It's
4 year
that's
undergrad art school?
4 year undergrad art school, private. You have to get like a crazy. You got to pay a shit ton of money for it. And you have to get either financial aid or some. We had to get financial aid. I had to. And I had student loans all the way up until now, and I'm 40. So this is when I've just paid off my student loans. So
Wow.
it's taken 20 years essentially to pay off my student loans. So the I guess so that's why one access is restricted to a certain extent. Anyone without the sort of kind of privilege that I've had to be able to enter into school is not able to go through that pipeline. So that's one way to get into the advertising and design agency. And most design and advertising agencies will pull from schools. They pull from Pratt, RISD, SVA, Parsons.
Why wouldn't they?
Yeah, exactly. So they all pull from there. So that means that they're getting this specific type of person
Right.
that has a certain amount of privilege because they have money to be able to do it. They have a certain education and sort of a way of thinking, and they're kind of put through all of that.
Yep.
And it doesn't and so it means that the creative industry is quite homogenous in thinking, homogenous in style, homogenous in all types of stuff. The industry, the creative industry, from an AIGA sort of census was saying that it's 71% white.
Wow.
So that is unbelievable. That's
As of what? As of like recent?
As of 2019. That was in 2019. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that it's really crazy, and it's because there's everyone's pulling from these specific schools. The next rung is Asian. So and it's the same thing. It's because Asians have the privilege to be able to go to these schools and pay their way into it and stuff. And so, but I think that's the thing that is amazing about we partner with a group called Scope of Work.
Yeah,
they're a talent development agency, and the young folks that go through Scope of Work, they go through a process of applying, of showing their portfolio, and talking to them. But most folks that are going through Scope of Work don't have portfolios like a person coming out of Parsons or a person coming out of SVA, and so oftentimes the thing that we love to do, and the thing that they actually have pushed other agencies, they partner with a ton of agencies, Mother New York, and they essentially they have everyone meet the young folks. So you meet with them, and you don't base everything off of
a holistic approach, not just the one portfolio.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's nice. That is really nice, because I feel like a lot of times you'll just be judged on your portfolio, and that's been the case since like the 90s.
Exactly.
And like forever, really.
Yeah.
So that you can meet those people. How much does that help, though?
It helps a ton. I mean, so for us, it's changed our hiring practice totally. It's allowed us to 25% of our company, we have about 25 to 30 people, give or take, is staffed by Scope of Work. And so we have young folks that have been with us from, I think, 4 or 5 years ago when Scope of Work started, and they've stayed with us. They're now mentoring other young folks that are coming in through the fellowship that Scope of Work does. What it's done for us is we just did a huge hiring of design, hired a whole other team, and we didn't just look at schools. We didn't just look at portfolios. We didn't just go through Scope of Work either. We put a call out. We got 40 sort of applicants. I met with every single one of them. Nice. I met with every single applicant and didn't just base it off of a portfolio or a resume or or whatever, but their kind of background and who they are, where they're coming from, if they're willing to learn, if they're willing to mentor when they go through this process and, are 2 or 3 years down the line
Right.
with us.
I like that. So, do you know how the scope of work process works for the person that's applying? Like on the other side, obviously you're hiring. So, like, they upload their portfolio, they go through this scope of work. Can you tell me a little bit more about the process on the other end?
So my
From what you know, I know you work with them, but
yeah. I mean, the one of the founders I'm married to one of the founders.
oh, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So you should know the process.
I know somewhat of it. Yeah, okay. I know somewhat of it. But she's actually in this process right now. She's reading applications, and I think she goes through 300 or so applications. Like her and her team,
sure.
Like scope of work, they go through 300 applications. I think they accept somewhere around 200 or 300 folks.
Sure.
Depending on what, I think last year it was like 150. This year they increase it a little bit, and they continue to increase it, as they have more people. Yeah. Mm. And so she's literally going through and reading every single thing that they're sending her.
What is the thing? Do you know what maybe we should have her come on?
Yeah, you should. Yeah, you should. You should definitely talk to her.
Should have done a combo episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, you should definitely talk to her and her partner. They're amazing and unbelievable and changing the whole face of the industry and how breaking and entering actually happens in the industry.
And is it for creative? Is it mainly creatives or
it's all creative?
For advertising, are we talking about? What's the
advertising, design, art? Fashion?
Okay.
I don't think they're into music yet, but there are sort of. Okay. I think they have some ways in there, but okay. I think it's architecture. It's anything that sort of has this visual, photography.
Sure.
I can't. There are some account folks and that go through them, but
like creative account. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Amazing. I'll have more questions about that, but for now, for the people listening. Where can they go and find the information about this?
Scopeofwork.co.
.co?
Yeah, .co. Yeah, they also
Did you do design work for them?
Our company did do it, and it's actually
did or did not?
We did. Yeah. Okay. And the young folks that they placed with us, 4 years ago, were actually the lead designers.
Nice.
So it was like this kind of beautiful circle.
Yeah.
And it really, really worked out well. The identity turned out amazingly well. We're super hyped about it. Yeah.
Okay. How did we get here?
We were talking about breaking and entering. Yeah. And so I was talking about the.
So you went to, back to you though. So you went to Pratt. I want to go back to you real quick and then we'll get into more advice. So you went to Pratt. Obviously it's kind of pay to play. It's homogenous. We get that. if you, and I always say this, if you can afford, if you have money, you come from money, or you want to work hard for loans and scholarships. Pratt Design School, a portfolio school, it's like surefire bet. You're gonna probably break in. Like, if you work hard, like obviously it's not handed to you, but if you can afford it, do it. Yeah. And you have the time and you don't have to worry about it, do it. Yeah. So we can get in some other advice maybe later that you have, but so you when you graduated there, did you get a job right out of school, or did you have to wait, intern? Like, was it pretty easy for you?
It was, I think easy is definitely relative. It was, I guess I can consider it easy. There was definitely a point where I didn't have, I had $20 to my name and stuff, but it's like, but it was basically for 3 months where I didn't have a job, but I was looking quite heavily. I worked for a bunch of professors early on, so in school I worked for professors.
Yeah, the connects.
I had the connects. Yeah, they all liked the work that I did. Mm-hmm. The professor that brought me to my first job was Ali Madad. He was my senior sort of communications design professor, and he worked at this place called Big, which is the brand integration group run by Brian Collins, in at Ogilvy.
Oh, nice.
And so this was pretty. This was like, I think they were, you know, during the aughts essentially. So 2000 to like 2010 or so. I think it disbanded. I can't remember exactly why, but essentially Brian Collins was the first like sort of chief creative director I had worked for.
Okay. Is it now? Doesn't he do Collins now? Isn't that what
Yeah,
it's called?
yeah. He does Collins. Yeah, he does Collins now, which is huge,
Yeah, it's
amazing.
supposed to be one of like, yeah, he's been on. I tried to get him on the pod. I think he declined. That's okay.
Yeah,
Respectfully, yeah.
yeah. He's. I mean, like from there, from Big, he jumped to make his own thing, and he kind of created that. But at Big was an incredible experience because there were 3 other creative directors there: Alan Horey, Richard Bates, and Chuck Rudy.
Sure.
And Richard and Chuck essentially brought me to my next job, which was at the Brand Union. Then from there, I worked in this. My main sort of mentor was this guy named Mark Aver, and he was my design director from the start all the way till the end of Mother. And so he brought me to different spots. Like he's the one that brought me to Mother after we worked together at Ogilvy. Him and Christian were heading up the design group there. And I met a bunch of people there. And the partners that I have now all came from Mother too. And so we met 13 years ago. And so from there, I essentially just started freelancing in different places and then ended up creating my own company off of this idea that we would go in-house to different companies and to rebrand them from the inside out so that the company has more ownership over the creative. Yeah. That's cool. So we worked with everyone. Like the model was first done at Cole Haan, and it was done with Rob Trossel, who is also from Mother, and Andy Gray, who's also from Mother. And we essentially helped create that brand from the inside out once Nike sold them. And so that's the brand that still exists today. It still looks pretty similar to what we designed initially. And that's kind of the goal, is like once you do something, you want it to roll out in a proper way and everything. And it's because we worked with the designers there that actually
that strong foundation. That's exactly. Yeah. I love it. Such an interesting, like, and I was just kind of thinking back, I kind of got caught up in the homogenous and the, like, that discussion about those design schools, but like, you definitely don't fit that category. So like maybe like labeling that is unfair because people work hard and like come from all different backgrounds to go to these schools, and maybe like they train them in a certain way, but you're still bringing yourself and your identity. So I was just like thinking, I kind of got lost in that thought, like maybe that is unfair to label people that go to these schools as all the same. Or like, I know we're not saying that, but I just want to be very clear, because you yourself, like your design background, your father, and like where you're from, I'm sure all played into a huge role, and like you were unstoppable force because of it. Combined with that training, like no shit, you're gonna break in, like you're fantastic, like you were destined to be in this, and you knew that, like you. So I don't know, I just wanted to do that little tangent there.
No, totally. Yeah, I completely agree. I'm not saying that there's not individuality within these places. I mean, there's amazing artists that come out of these schools. Everyone is so different. Everyone leans into their heritage in a way that didn't happen before. Yeah. But it's just it's just the fact that right now, I guess the creative industry has relied so heavily on schools to be the feeder system. Yes. And so heavily to be like, they've relied on schools to be the ones that train these folks in order to be able to break into the creative world. So there's a lot of gatekeeping therefore, and it's really terrible. I mean, it's expensive. Yeah. I mean, it's no shade on the people that go to school. I went to school. So,
yeah, of course.
most people that I know here.
So my question here, maybe probably the last question here with like your advice here is like, if for the people that are listening to this, maybe are in different careers that want to switch over to design, or maybe are at a more traditional undergrad, that's usually
Yeah.
who our audience is, or your friends that just are listening, like that maybe they can't afford to like to switch their degree or to go to a portfolio school. So it's like, what can we do? Like,
Hmm.
what are some practical ways? Like, are there YouTube classes that you know? Are there like is scope of work? Do they have training offers? Like, where can we go and learn some of these basic skills? Even myself, like, I want to learn some design so I don't have to rely on our designers for every freaking social post that I need help with. Like,
Hmm.
where can we learn? Like on the side for those that can't.
Yeah, there's, I mean, there are a ton of classes now in terms of design that you can kind of just sign up for pretty easily. YouTube is actually where most of the young folks have learned to just dabble in design. You know, the other thing is that the programs are extremely expensive too, but
Yeah.
there's ways in without using the programs. You know, and there's I'm not like I think you know, I'm not gonna, most people, like, there used to be a time where we would all just, rip a program offline. I don't know how young folks are ripping them now because everything's subscription based at the moment.
Are you
But
talking like an Adobe?
yeah, it's like, because
Oh yeah,
that's
yeah,
a big access point too. You know, is like
yeah.
not being able to get.
But anytime, any career,
Yeah,
any sport, hobby, you have to invest in like the like
it's true.
good
Yeah,
essential stuff. So I'm saying here, I don't know if you're saying this, like if you know you want to go into design or design, so like you got to get
and you
Adobe.
want to invest in it. Yeah, okay, you got to
You
get
got to
good.
like you
Sure.
got like get the right tools, like, and
Yeah,
it might be a barrier, but like you got to work hard, like
yeah,
get some money, figure it out. Like nothing's gonna be handed to you like for free. Like you definitely should you need those Adobes. Like I'm pretty sure,
yeah, yeah.
unless you got other ideas, but that's what I think.
No, yeah, I think yes. If you want to go into something, you have to figure out how to get there, and you got to figure
Mhm.
out how to work hard and invest in it in that in that form. I
Yeah,
think the and I just want to clarify something. Like not all like when I'm talking about the feeder system from schools, I'm talking specifically about the art schools and the expensive private ones that are not
yeah.
necessarily people that are going to colleges and state schools and that kind of
School of
stuff.
Art Institute in Chicago, I know, is a big one, like SAIC.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's like, I think the way, I think the way to break in my opinion, is to meet people, is to talk to people, talk to as many, like, you know, there's this, like DM people, start just talking to other creatives, start like creating your own community of folks that are interested in that, you know, like, um, uh, Virgil Abloh. Do you know
Of
Virgil Abloh?
course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Virgil Abloh.
RIP.
Um, he and Heron Preston started DMing each other really early on. You know, and he
Hmm.
tells this story about how they started to just like talk about shit, and they would really get excited about certain things that they were creating together. To me, it's like you create that community, and then you start to talk to other folks that are in the industry too. Like you start talking to people that are working at the companies that you want to work at. You start talking to anyone there, and your name will start to be
Sick.
ingrained in their brains. And then when they
Absolutely.
want to look for people, someone who's like willing to do anything and hardworking and stuff, they're going to think of you because you're so persistent. You're so like you're consistently emailing, you're consistently talking to them, DMing them, trying to talk about all of the different things that you're excited about.
Yeah.
So in my mind, it's about getting yourself out there
Yeah.
through the things that you're interested in. You know?
Yeah. Visibility is really important. Like interacting with like LinkedIn posts and DMing and
Yeah,
being normal and not, not invasive. But being consistent is so like in PR, like
yeah,
with journalists, like that's what we do. Is like I'm always commenting on my favorite like ad trade publication journalists just to let them know I'm still here, I'm still listening, I'm still
yeah.
reading. And then people do that to me as well for this podcast. So I'm sure the same thing applies for design. So that makes a
Seriously,
lot
yeah.
of sense.
Consistency is huge, and I wouldn't say like non-answers from people is a sign they don't want to talk to you.
No, no.
Yeah,
They still see it.
they still see it exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. And they're busy.
yeah.
But yeah. I love it. I think pretty good advice here. Anything else that you thought about, maybe like one other big thing you want to get out there? If not, how can people reach out to you? What are your resources? Like, where can like they find you? What's the website? Give us all the that breakdown.
So my website is combo.co. That's
Looks great.
My agency. You can definitely email me at kapono.chung@combo.co. I'm happy to speak to anyone. I might not respond to everything, but I'm happy to talk to folks if they're interested in speaking.
Love it. Great. What's the font you're using here on this site? It looks good.
It's called Arizona.
Good.
Yeah,
glad you knew that. I mean,
yeah,
that's pretty good.
Yeah, we worked with I can't remember the foundry's name though. It's like slipping my mind right now. But we worked with them to kind of help create some custom letter forms and stuff for.
Oh, nice.
For us. And it's a variable typeface. It's super cool. It's a variable typeface. So as it gets like smaller, it goes into like a serif or sans serif.
There you go.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It's cool.
All right. Those are all the questions I have, Kapono. Really, really interesting stuff. Really cool agency you have. So people that want to reach out, go to our Instagram. We'll have your resources there, the website, and you also listed some secret ones out for us specifically. We're not going to tell the people like those resources you recommend. We'll have those on our Instagram, so you have to go there to find those. Little teaser for that.
Cool.
But thanks, you crushed it. Appreciate
thanks,
you.
Gino. Yeah, it was great.
Thank you so much for listening to this entire episode of the Breaking and Entering Advertising podcast. If you like what you heard, it would mean a lot to us and help us grow and get better guests and better break-ins if you can go to Apple Podcasts and leave us 5 stars and a small review if you have the time. Be sure to connect with our guests if you like what they said by going to our Instagram at Breaking and Entering Pod. That's all one word, Breaking and Entering Pod on Instagram. We have links to their portfolios and their LinkedIn, and they want to connect, so do that. And thank yous. Thank you to Mikey Malarkey, our audio engineer, and Buchan Jung, our creative director. Can't do without you two, and a team from the University of Illinois. It's a student team from the agency called AdBuzz. They're a PR agency, and it's been a pleasure working with them. Thank you all so much, and we will see you next week with another amazing guest.